Yo, Pop Rock here. Remember these videos? Well, this is kind of a part 2, except instead of reading them off of Google, I'm going to read them off of IMDb. I didn't include very short reviews, and neither did I add reviews that are more so saying that the show's not really their thing, and that how they can understand if someone else likes them. And because of that, I narrowed both Amphibia and Gravity Falls down to one review for each of them. So if you were wondering why I'm mashing them both, that's why. I'm going to start off with Gravity Falls, which actually has an 8.9 out of 10 on IMDb out of 86,752 people. And the review we're going to be looking at is probably just as bad, if not worse, than the ones in this video. And, yeah, I'm going to read it. Am I the only one not to like this? I'm sorry, but it has to be said. This is a boring show if you ask me. Hate me all you want, but I just don't like this show. It's boring. And who else knows that Mabel likes vampires?
Everyone. That's sort of how the whole system works, Anne.
Now, what recent movie features a girl who likes vampires? You know, the one with Kristen Stewart as Bella Swan. No? Well, it's Twilight. They ripped it off. Oh, and guess what else? Mabel also loves pigs. What's a wonderful cartoon in which a girl rescues a pig from getting killed just because he's a runt? Released in 1973, with a sequel 30 years later, plus a remake released in 2006. I'm not gonna read this. Why That My Friends Would Be Charlotte's Web, they ripped it off too! Mabel and That Pig is an obvious ripoff of Fern and Wilbur from the classic park cartoon based on an equally awesome book. Wow, I guess characters can't just like pigs now, I guess. Oh yeah, Mabel obviously has ADHD. And of course, that can only mean one thing. The Dipper, her brother, is a total wimp, without a spine or any courage. Oh, and that reminds me, this show has too much in common with Courage the Cowardly Dog and Scooby-Doo. Also, the creepiness of the show also reminds me too much of another classic cartoon. One from 1977 called The Rescuers. It also had a sequel 13 years later. I can't read this any longer. I've seen Rescuers 1 and 2. They literally have nothing in common with Gravity Falls. Alright. It might also be a ripoff on the very first Disney film ever made, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. How? How is it a ripoff of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? I've literally seen every Disney movie. They have nothing in common. They may have taken inspiration, but that doesn't mean they ripped it off. Bottom line, this show can't compete with any of the classics that I already mentioned, but it can compete with that popular, but also unpopular movie about vampires. I think the rating of this show received should have switched with another movie that I reviewed, and that would be Gordy, which, by the way, that person wants it to be at 3.8. And one thing, did I mention that the show's titular location of Gravity Falls, Oregon does not exist? First off, all of those ripoff claims were very ridiculous, like I guess a character can't like pigs now, and second, ADHD is a disorder, not a personality. I don't have a third thing to say, so I'm just going to move on to the next show, Amphibia. Amphibia has an 8.1 out of 10 out of 3,407 users. On to the review. Another failure by the Disney Channel. As many fans of animation know, cartoons have been stuck in a rut since the mid-2000s that continue to deteriorate and manifest itself. Amphibia is not an exception. It's probably the worst cartoon put out by the network. Say what you will about the Buzz on Maggie or Shory McShort shorts. At least they have redeeming factors to them. This has next to nothing. The only half-decent thing to come out of it is the backgrounds, but even they could use some work and refining. It has more of the random, cynical humor seen in the previously mentioned shows. Characters saying outdated slang, selfies, poorly drawn expressions, elements seen in other recent bad anime shows like the Powerpuff Girls reboot. I sat down and watched the entirety of the first episode, which was uploaded to YouTube early by the Disney Channel themselves. Almost the entire time, I was either shaking my head at how bad the jokes were, or sighing heavily at the blatant animation mistakes. Sometimes a combination of both. Not only are the selfies terribly outdated, but they have no business being in a cartoon. That's one of the things I hate about many recent cartoons. They try to be hip and with times haphazardly shoving as many of these social media scenes as they possibly can. It's just awful. The worst thing you can do in a cartoon. The characters feel like ones we've already seen in previous animated sitcoms. Anne is a bland teenage girl stereotype. Sprig is an overly optimistic adventurer who cracks terrible jokes along the way. Hop Pop is just a terribly overused, grumpy old man seen in hundreds of cartoons. Almost nothing new is brought to the table with him. This review only covers my opinion on the first episode, as that's the only available episode as of this writing. I might update this review once newer episodes are released, though I can't make any promises. Wait! So this person decided to call the show another failure by the Disney Channel, and they've only seen the first episode? Oh my goodness. Like, at that point, I just keep that to myself. Anyways, from what I have seen, though, Amphibia is nothing new. It's a waste of space, terrible humor, terrible characters, terrible everything. Definitely one of Disney Channel's worst productions. Here's one thing you should know before watching Amphibia. It's very slow-paced in the first season. It slightly picks up the pace within the second season, and the third season, while not all the episodes are released yet, is definitely at a moderately good pace. Amphibia is a show I would say is more to vibe to, not to rush through. Subscribe!